Hi, Silver Rain Running Cloud here. I was gonna keep doing the backstory, but frankly, I came inside from the garbage can, and my wrist is hurting. So I'm concerned that uh, I'm not sure what to call this person because I don't want to. The perpetrator, I'll call him the perp. The perp is using neurotoxins against me, and my wrist hurts. And see how that's swelling right now. Well, that happened after I took out the garbage, so maybe they put poison on my door. Now I know that sounds totally weird and freaky, and if I hadn't been living through this, I would think it was weird and freaky too. But I'm going to tell you the story of what's happened, and I'm not going to do the backstory because I'm honestly afraid I'm not going to. There's a possibility I'm not going to survive. Okay, my faith in God says I'm going to live, but my faith in God said that people would help me. I it never. I believed in America. I believed that I had maybe run into some foreigners like Hazel Carby and Vera Kuczynski who weren't very good, and maybe some cowardly Americans who weren't willing to stand against them, like Gerald Janes, the chairman of the department, and Robert Steptoe, my thesis advisor. And they didn't stand up to the European foreign women who were blocking the American students from getting credentialed to teach American literature, Black American literature, and more importantly, to publish. If you look at the MLA, the Modern Language Association, which is the leading association for literature people, humanities students, you'll see so little American literature and so little Black American literature. They're talking about foreign countries. And the universities are filled with foreign countries. Every foreigner got their PhD. I did not. I stayed in the system from 1990 to 2003. And in 2003 or 4 was when I was infected with Morgellons. Okay? Now, in my opinion, Morgellons created an infrastructure within my body, and it just needed a trigger. Okay? It just needed a trigger. And the local criminal here, the perp, provided the trigger. Now, I used to smoke marijuana, but I can't get marijuana in Texas because they think I'm the police or too straight, so they'll only sell me hemp here. So this man has been delivering hemp to me because he works over there as a criminal, and then he goes home, then he comes back and works as a criminal. And I'd seen him here directing people. People come, here, and he's telling them which rooms to go to. I saw him lead a group of children into a room. They were all dressed up like a party. It was about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So I've seen this man around, and I know his business. But I mind my business for the most part because I don't want to be killed. And I can't fight it. I mean, if I'm looking around and I'm seeing child prostitutes and they're attacking me, I had all the child prostitutes just teasing me in the street, chasing me, throwing rocks at my car because I hurt business. Did you see this movie called The Cooler? There was this movie called The Cooler with an actor that died. But in this movie, The Cooler, the casino in Las Vegas hired this guy who was just a downer. He had downer vibes. And when he would go to a table, everybody would start losing. So when people were winning too much and the house was losing too much, they would send out this guy. And I think he was called the closer. I'm not sure. Hoffman, or is that the act? It doesn't matter. Anyway, that's the effect I have because I don't get drunk and I just smoke the hemp and I pretty much stick to myself. I mean, in order to write 67,000 tweets in what, a year or two, you're pretty busy. And when I did Facebook forever because back in 2014, right after my mother died, it was my brother trying to kill me, literally trying to kill me, because my mother left millions and my brother wanted to be a senator. And he liked children too, according to one of his girlfriends who contacted me after she read me on Facebook. She said, I didn't know he was married. And oh my God, I have an 8-year-old son. And he was very interested in my son. And at the time, I didn't make anything of that. But then I heard about Epstein and I heard about all the politicians. And I thought about my brother Andre's interest in being a senator. I mean, he even got married as my mother was dying. He got married because he wanted to be a senator. And to be a senator, he needed my inheritance too. He needed my million. My mother left a lot of money and a lot of land. She was a circuit court judge. And then my stepfather died. And in the 1970s, he established a trust fund for me. I didn't get it because Andre administered that estate too. Nobody knew that Andre was going to be that way. Nobody knew. He was a lawyer. He seemed loving and kind. We didn't know. It was only as my mother was dying that she began to realize that Andre had been a huge mistake. And she asked me, she said, would you please administer the trust? And I said, no, because I'm insane. The world has declared me mentally ill, which means people are going to take advantage of me. Plus, I give things away. My value for money is extremely low. I love stuff. I love pretty things, but money's stupid. Money's just paper. Things are important, like my land, like my inheritances, like my stocks, my gems, my gold, all of the things my mother left me. You know, my mother, when I told my mother, I said, Mom, they ruined me. You know, I didn't start graduate school till I was 36. I'd already had a couple of careers, successful enough. I mean, I had to quit in business. I had to become a contractor because of all the racism. The only way I could achieve happily was by being a contractor, because when you're a contractor, they pay you more than they pay anybody. I got paid more than the executives got paid. But they don't mind when they know you're leaving. When they know that you're not going to stay and show up, they're kind. They'll pay you the money to do the job. My rep was good. And then I had children, and I was a full-time mother because I felt that it was extremely important for me to have control of my children for at least the first 6 years of their lives, because that's when their value systems are set. And I did try babysitters, and I was not happy with the results. I was not happy with the results. I'll put it this way. If you ask another woman to take care of your children, you might not be happy with the results if that woman is jealous or envious of you. And she's going to be, because she's going to come into your house in scrubby jeans, and you're going to be walking out of your house in an executive suit. So I was lucky that my husband graduated from medical school when my baby was 4 months old, because I was working from home with my computers, because my reputation was so good that my employers actually had Amoco Oil at the time. I was doing contracts with them at the time. And my boss at Amoco Oil had me doing work at S&S Automotive out in Elgin, where his brother owned a business. So I was so good at Amoco that they gave me more work elsewhere. And that's why after I had my baby, I worked from home. I called in, I worked from home. But then when I had my second child, I did not work from home anymore. That's when I had my daughter. I did not want anybody to touch my daughter. Okay, partly because of what had happened, with my son. I think that the babysitter, well, I don't want to talk about it, but let's just say that I was extremely protective about my daughter, and I did not want any other person to take care of her. I wanted to be sure that she was well taken care of and that nothing happened. So what I did instead was I created a children's committee at Outer Drive East, the condominium in downtown Chicago where I lived, with Sunny Feely, another stay-at-home mom. There were about four of us in the building at that time, four stay-at-home moms. One, the Vanderplug, she moved out to Kenilworth, but Sunny Feely stayed, and I stayed, and Joyce stayed. And I started a children's committee, and we did Christmas parties. We did playground. We renovated the playground, did playground. My point is that I've always contributed. Okay. I was a Girl Scout leader. I was a Boy Scout. I wasn't the leader, but I did the driving. I came to the meetings, everything. Okay. Because my son worked his way through Boy Scouts. He was a lodge chief. He was a silver bar. He was an eagle. And you have to drive people around to do those things, right? My son was on the swim team, ranked 16th in the state. My daughter was the prima ballerina at the New England Ballet Nutcracker. I was a fundraiser. I started the restaurant marketing program with coupons in the program book. I sold flowers at the flower bazaar. I mean, I got all these roses delivered to my house. I packaged them all with baby's breath and wrapped them up and sold these roses. I mean, I really did not take my responsibility as a mother casually. I felt that as a mother, part of my job was community building. And these are free jobs, people. People don't pay you. You don't even really get thanked for these jobs. But you do see the results of your work. And that is a beautiful and wonderful thing. So I was never lazy. I was never irresponsible. And my children were able to achieve their dreams. And I didn't tell them what their dreams should be either. I felt it was extremely important not to, because when I was coming up, my parents were so worried about the racism that they were facing that they said, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer because you're only going to be able to make money with other Black Americans. And you're going to have a profession where you can hang up your own shingle. That's what my mom would always say. She said, you have to be able to hang your own shingle. Well, I couldn't make medical school because a couple of reasons. Math and chemistry. Yeah, math and chemistry. Too hard. But those are the gateway courses, right? Because I'll tell you what I know. My stepfather became a brain surgeon. But when I met him, he was a medical student. When he married my mom, he was a medical student. So I had medical books in my home from the time I was 10 years old. And I'm a reader. So I'd been reading medical books and all those crazy words and looking at the pictures. And I'm not saying that I am a doctor. I'm just saying that I actually studied medicine. And I don't know about you, but I'm not exactly sure the last time I saw a doctor who was current on the literature. So when I got sick with the Morgellons, I was horribly mistreated by the medical profession. I went to one emergency room and the doctor didn't even come in the room. Because Morgellons was weird and strange. And all the doctors were told to treat it like a mental illness. And I'd already been declared mentally ill because when I realized in 2004, 2005, that I could not beat European racism and that European racism was the mantra for American life, I became very depressed. When I realized that it wasn't just Yale and Vera Kuczynski and Hazel Carby and the other Europeans and Black men, it wasn't just them that were going to stop me. UMass. I had to go to UMass. I couldn't get into any other graduate school program, even though my work had been plagiarized already. So I already had the proof that I was the deal, the real deal, the real thing. Because my work was given to Valerie Smith of UCLA. And then I find out that Henry Louis Gates robbed the Ford Foundation. Now, while I'm going to grad school, I don't know all this. I don't know all this until 2010. I mean, because you just don't know these things. So when I tell you these things all in one flow, you have to understand that as it's happening to me, I'm just like you. Do you know how innocent and naive you are right now? And how you might feel that if you do the work, you'll get the reward? No. And how you might feel that there's no such thing as European racism that can stop you. You can be whatever you want. No. All those are lies. But you have to be shown that they're lies. So as you're listening to me tell my story, please know that my story unfolded over agonizing years of confusion and pain and denial and lack of recognition. I was at the University of Massachusetts from 2004. No, I'm sorry. I was at the University of Massachusetts from 1995 until 2004, at least 9 years. And not one professor read anything that I wrote. Not even the black man again. Joseph Scarrett. Well, I got very depressed. And that is the goal when you're a targeted individual. If you read about it, go ahead, read about it. You can hear how once I became exiled from Yale, I became socially useless to my peer group, right? I'm a financial burden now to my husband. He's not going to get any glory from being with me, from supporting me. My children, they might not get into the colleges of their choice when they find out who their mother is, and they might be tracked and shadowed after that. Because by now I'm realizing that it's bigger than me, and it's bigger than the one or two people, and it's bigger than the corporations. It's a system. It's a lifestyle. It's an ideology. And I used to think that Europeans were individuals and that they wouldn't all be okay with getting things they weren't entitled to that were costing other people their very lives. But I learned very differently, didn't I? Most disappointingly, with my best friends from high school who actually are Europeans. So they got the money and they live in America in luxury, while I'm in one of the cheapest hotels in Houston with the kind of people that you find in the cheapest hotel in Houston. Houston is by far the worst city that I've ever lived in, and I have lived in many, many cities. I think San Francisco is the only city that I thought was more evil and horrible. But Houston takes the cake. You can't even cross the street in Houston because the highways will block you. The communities are all cut up by the highways, and the highways are circuitous with long exits, and they are built as foundations into the ground because of all of the underground transporting that's going on with pipes and things. So the highways are embedded in the ground. So you'll have to go 5 miles to get 2 miles across the street because you have to go big looping all around. And that's how Houston is designed. I don't know how people date here outside of their region or anything. And then when you get to where you're going, well, if you're me, they already know you're coming. Now, don't ask me how they know. I think maybe the Lions Club, maybe the Rotary Club, maybe their meetings. I just know that when I moved to Houston, all the chop shops closed. There were a lot of chop shops here, and they all closed. When I would go walking with my dog on the back way, they let weeds grow up, so I couldn't walk there anymore. When I try to walk on the corporate property right next door, the guards come out. And the guards come out and they tell me, we know your name. And they tell me my legal government name. And they say, the property manager doesn't want you walking here. And I say, hey, the city of Houston built this street. You can't control it. He said, hey, it's private property. And I'd heard that enough in Arizona to know that Europeans don't care if it's legal or not. Private property is property that's being guarded and claimed and stolen, just like any other fruit of war. We have failed to recognize that the Europeans came here to invade, just like they've done in Africa, just like they've done in Australia, just like they've done in Hawaii. They've done it to us. Now, we thought we were above it, right? We thought, oh, they can't do that to us. We're too big. We're too... No, we have been conquered. We have been conquered by the Europeans. And we have been conquered to the point where we don't have a voice in their courts, so they can steal our land and not hear our case in court. And all the other atrocities. Well, I couldn't get my doctorate, but I guess it's okay because I probably wouldn't have been able to get a job. And if I did get a job, I probably only would have been paid $35,000 a year, and I was making $60,000 when I was a consultant. So it wasn't going to be a very good career, but I needed the credential. You see, I needed the credential to certify my knowledge, to prove that I knew it. But then social media came along, and I could prove my knowledge as I go. But then social media is owned by the Europeans. And we fan it out, we build it out, we make a big cyberspace property, and they come in and say, oh, this is ours, which is exactly what happened with the land, isn't it? So what the same strategy in cyberspace is a strategy that our enemies have used to seize our land. Now, would you ever have believed that you could be robbed of the proceeds of a living trust? How about twice? I have land in Oklahoma that the probate court, they won't let me in the city. Okay, all that is horrible. And maybe I'll live long enough to write a book about it if you haven't followed the social media, or if they've deleted my social media, because it's all under the control of the Europeans. And when I realized that there was no way out and that I was targeted, well, I wanted to die. I wanted to die. So I went to the hospital hoping for group therapy. They committed me. They committed me as a danger to myself. No, she didn't commit me as a danger to myself. The social worker committed me as a danger to others. I had to sit in the hospital in a closed room for observation. I don't know how long. It might have been, it seemed like forever. And when the therapist came in, she looked mentally ill herself. She was extremely skinny. She kind of shook as if she was a pill popper. She had stringy hair and she's working nights. So she was scary. And when she asked me about my depression, I said, well, I'm so depressed because I realized I can't beat white supremacy. And I'm not going to be able to reach my life goals. And I don't know what's going to happen to my people because they need to know what I have learned. To bolster their identities, to let them know the identities that have been stolen from them and who they really are based on the honest to God true history. But that was exactly what Hazel Carby and Vera Kuczynski and Yale University and Harvard University, that's exactly what they did not want. They did not want Americans to become aware of their power as Americans. They wanted to culturally castrate us so that the genocide would be much easier. So it would be much easier to substitute gangster rap, movies like The Color Purple over and over again. I mean, don't you wonder why Steven Spielberg gets to make movies that denigrate Americans without any apologies? Do you see 10,000 newscasters demanding that some Jewish producer, some Jew, they're not Jewish, they're Jews, some Jew producer apologize for insulting Black people? No. They insult Black people on television every day and every night. I used to listen to Larry King talk so condescendingly to his American guests. And if it wasn't hard enough to look at Larry King, listening to him degrade Americans, knowing that he's an immigrant that owes his life to us, very painful, very painful. And I felt depressed. And when I went into the hospital, they didn't offer me group therapy. They offered me a ruination of my life by having a commitment on my record. And she said that the reason she was committing me was because I was a danger to white people. And I'm not lying. She said, you said that you don't believe you can outrun white supremacy. You're a danger to white people. And I guess she's right, because white people want my stuff. They don't want me to be a professor. They don't want me to inherit, to claim ownership of my multi-million-dollar estate. And here I am living at one of the cheapest hotels in Houston. Now, with the help of Amazon, I've been able to fix up my space. I think my room turned out to be really pretty. But if you saw the room I was in April, this room, it looked quite different. It didn't look comfortable. It didn't look nice at all. So I've been lucky to experience some prosperity from nations, from BRICS nations, that are helping Americans. Americans are actually part of the BRICS nation ideology and not a part of the NATO. NATO was always designed to allow Europeans to seize the assets from Canada to Mexico. NATO has tried to build an aqueduct from Canada to Mexico. They took over a lot of the land in Arizona, a lot of public parks, and this is a trend. This is a trend everywhere. And for us to pretend like racism isn't a war strategy is so foolish. So then, as social media begins to gather steam and more people start to pay attention, what happens? Excuse me, Elon Musk buys Twitter and it becomes private property. And what else happens? Hate talk. Everybody says, no hate talk. Oh, we can ban you for hate talk. But do you know what hate talk really is? It's when you tell the truth about what the Europeans did to rob you and kill you. So I couldn't get my doctorate. They wouldn't even read my work. And the work I did at Yale, they plagiarized it. Hazel Carby gave my work to Valerie Smith, and Henry Louis Gates gave my Ford Foundation Fellowship application outline to Brent Edwards. Valerie Smith is the president of Swarthmore. And Brent Edwards, last time I checked, was an English professor at Columbia. So both of them went very far on my work, but I live at one of the cheapest hotels in Houston, Texas. A real shithole of a city. But the hotel is nice. The hotel management is decent. They've let me live here for 3 years comfortably. The hotel manager, I consider her one of my friends. I care about her. She showed me great kindnesses. And she protects me. I feel so protected by her. I mean, she stopped people from stealing packages from me, and she just has really done a good job, as well as the maintenance engineer. So I felt secure as far as the management has gone. And I would just think this is a wonderful, it's not a terrible hotel. It needs a lot of work. But the problem is that the criminals have lived here for so long, because this is the bottom of society. The whole hotel is rigged. Okay? I try to run security cameras outside, and they've got lights that actually project a circle with dots. It's a circle with light dots that blocks my camera. and they have altered one of the lights so that when they walk by the light, it fudges their face so you can't see their features. And they also have a handheld device that does this. And I can't pair my baby cams. I'm using baby cams because they keep stealing. They keep hacking into the system. Now, I noticed the hackers here almost immediately, and it's a multiracial group, and some of them don't look poor. So this is a headquarters for some sophisticated hacking. And I'm not exactly sure what the targets are, but I know that I can't use my messages because they load so much data on my messages that it takes up a lot of my memory. When I try to upload my YouTubes, it takes forever because they've loaded up a lot of my memory, and they hack into my system. They were able to tell me what I'm ordering from Amazon. Okay? And they're able to tell me what I'm ordering from Amazon. Now, you know how you're talking to someone casually and they'll say something that's kind of out from left field, and you'll be like, wow, that's really out from left field, but it relates to me, right? And you're like, gee whiz, isn't it funny? I just ordered sea moss and she's mentioning sea moss, and nobody talks about sea moss, and we haven't had 10 words, but sea moss is in the word. And gee, this one is talking about pillows, and I was just looking. So you get it? You see how you can figure out by reverse engineering from what you're seeing, from your reactions, from the reality you're experiencing, you can reverse engineer what's happening. So the place is full of hackers and booby traps, right? I had to cover so many mirrors in here because every time I left the room, the same people would be walking outside, and they would come in my room when I wasn't in my room. At one point, someone came in my room when I was in a grocery store with one of the people staying here, took me to the grocery store after my car was repossessed. And when they took me to the grocery store, they had an extra key card, and someone met them at the grocery store and they gave the key card. And that person came back here, came into my room, and I had my things arranged in a way where you can't very easily pull my luggage out. So they cut the strap on a bag I inherited from my mother. It was one of the few things I kept from my mother that I had. Okay. And a necklace that I got from her, the police at Target broke it in an illegal search because they didn't want me sitting in the Target parking lot noticing that there is an air control center in the hospital and not many patients. And that there is another observation point behind Target near the American Girl store. So I'm sitting in the parking lot, which is made by public funds. You're allowed to sit in a mall parking lot. And they send the security by to ask me to leave. And I said, I shouldn't have to leave. So I said, I shouldn't have to leave. So then they bring 3 other guys out. And I said, but this is public property. I'm not hurting anyone. And I'm about to go into the American Girl store. And they said, no, we don't want you here. Because by then they knew who I was. By then they knew that I'm the one that did all those reports on Facebook that got so many people in Arizona in big trouble, that the Arizona State Troopers were ordered to try to murder me. When Officer Crawford, I'm not sure what his name was, when he drove me out to the African safari where there is no African safari, I knew he was about to shoot me in the head. But he got last minute orders. He had to get out of the car and read the orders, and he couldn't believe them, so he's reading them through the headlights. He had to stand and look in the headlights to read the orders to not kill me, to take me to jail instead. Because you know why they couldn't kill me? Murder me? Assassinate me? Because I live streamed the entire kidnapping on Facebook. You know, Arizona Public Safety was involved in that illegal action. 911 was involved in that illegal action. The Arizona State Troopers were involved in that illegal action, and the Wickenburg Police. So there is no law when it comes to seizing the property of American heiresses. There is no law when it comes to European aggression. There's only war. And because they declare me insane. You don't want to listen to me, right? And with the stories that I tell, you don't want to listen to me because I don't want to know. If I could have not known the things I know, I would prefer that, because it's horrible to know that you're living with people that would steal from you, that would kill you, and still think that they're good people, loved by God. No, that just can't be, you see? Because just extrapolate. If you've got a race of people that go around the world killing and robbing everybody else, and they can't be stopped, eventually they're the only ones left. And when you look at the homelessness in America, you can see that the Europeans have already turned on themselves. They've already brought medieval Europe to America. Horrifying. But it's hate talk to talk about it, isn't it? We're not allowed to publicly expose what's happening to us, are we? I mean, I had to leave Twitter because I was shadow banned. If you search me on Twitter, you won't find me unless you find the place, which is hidden, where you can say, show me the sensitive stuff, because the default is to block what they call sensitive, and they called me a sensitive. So if you search for Silver Rain Running Cloud or free advice about life, you wouldn't see it come up on Twitter. You wouldn't see me come up on Twitter at all, even though I hold the record for tweets. And I asked Elon Musk, I said, hey, I hold a record for tweets. How about some recognition? No. I said, hey, you want to be an American? You love American? Listen to my story. Save me. Save me. Pull me up from the bottom. White man. But Elon Musk preferred to ignore me while conducting psych ops on me, okay? With Neuralink and CRISPR, okay? And here's where we go into the science fiction land, right? Okay. When I was stricken with Morgellons, I immediately responded because of my medical education, my medical science education, not medical school education. Because after my stepfather, after his books, and he's a neurosurgeon, I married a college student, and I actually filled out his medical school applications. I actually typed them for him, right? And edited his essay, right? And stuck by him all through medical school. So I've had access to medical education since I was 10. And that has been such a blessing because I've been able to heal myself in so many ways. And as I tell the story of the attacks on me by this perp, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But not medical book knowledge, anatomy knowledge, and Morgellon experiencers reports. Now, with the Morgellons, my symptoms were not among the worst symptoms, because I didn't have any bugs coming out of my skin like some of the people did. However, I do now. Okay, not bugs coming out of my skin, but Morgellons things, and they look like sesame seeds. They actually look kind of like boogers. I mean, if you've ever taken something out of your nose that's not running, it's a solid little glob, that's a Morgellon. That's not a mucus. Mucus runs. Mucus doesn't clot like an entity. Okay? And that's what they look like. And I pulled them out of my ear. But the main controller one doesn't look like that. The main controller one looks more like a dust ball or a fiber ball, but it's got long flagella and it's surrendered. Now, why would I say it's surrendered? These are conscious beings. So you see yourself as a city. Now, I was not that totally aware of it. I noticed when I was using the cupping device that the healing was extending beyond the body that I knew about, that I could feel strains of disease, we'll just call it disease, being pulled out from my etheric body. I'll just call it my etheric body, right? And that's when I realized that my body isn't just this 3D thing and the spiritual thing and the soul thing, but there are other tangible reflections of my body, tangible layers of my body. I can't see them, but these beings can phase in and out. And they're somewhat plasma beings. Now, you might hear Lex Friedman interview plasma scientists. And I always thought that plasma was a space thing. But plasma is very descriptive of the way something moves. And these beings have aspects of plasma in the way that they move, the way that they can evade capture. So here I am in this hotel, and obviously a lot of child sex trade is going on here. Obviously foster children who were adopted specifically to be prostitutes. And, you know, prostitutes with kids that become prostitutes as kids. And the last gang leader was a European guy, and he moved out shortly after I moved in. And as he was leaving, he said, "Did you know that people follow you? Are you police?" I say, "No." So I've got people following me. And the criminals notice that I'm being shadowed and followed by law enforcement, right? Some form of law enforcement, some CIA, some FBI, somebody important, somebody scary is following me. So they start to flee the hotel because it's not a fear of me. I pretty much mind my business, right? So then the children start to try to drive me out. They start to come at me when I'm walking my dog. People are driving by on the street. I go out and suddenly cars have to go. And they're screaming at me on the street and they're trying to hit me on the street. Very targeted behavior because it's a dead end. It's a dead end street. So I'm trying to figure out, how do they know when I'm coming? How do they know when I'm coming? So I'm searching my room for cameras. I'm covering the TV. I'm covering the mirrors. I'm looking for holes in the wall because somehow the criminals here know when I'm coming and going. So I kind of plugged up all the holes. And I think that really makes them angry. And then I started, I don't know I can't exactly remember what triggered the perpetrator, but he's delivering hemp to my room, and I'm really wishing he would deliver some of that marijuana. But he's not going to deliver the marijuana to me because they've already identified me as an undercover investigator. And then they track my work in Arizona on Facebook and Twitter, and they double down on the belief that I'm on the side of the moral people. I would say law, but I'll just say morality, because morality is different from the rule of law that the Europeans have us under. So with my morality, I'm a real downer here because I'm always trying to develop people, right? I mean, the International Ladies Chamber of Commerce is a business development organization, and I still try to work. What am I going to do? I don't watch television. What am I going to do? I'm going to keep trying to work, and I'm going to keep trying to serve the community. So I start to try to train people, but they end up just stealing from me. And, I get to the point then where I'm not going to let them in my room or anything. And the man comes in my room and he says, "Listen, I'm giving you the best marijuana, the best weed I have." And I'm like, "This, it's hemp." and he puts things on my bed. He puts like 5 bags of marijuana on my bed. And I'm wondering, why is he on my bed? And he's spreading it up towards my pillow. And I'm like, all this looks the same. It's all the same hemp. Why is he putting it on my bed? But within a day or two of that, there's a worm in my ear. There's movement in my ear. There's a metal in my ear. The cartilage of my ear, I can't even touch it without feeling electrical shock pain. So I realized that he deposited the activator, the CPU, the boot, that Morgellons had already created in my body a new pathway, a new plasma pathway. So when this thing gets in my ear, I'm experiencing excruciating pain. But I can't go to the hospital because they're going to abuse me, okay? Because every time I've been to the hospital since 2005, I've been abused. Okay, ever since I've gotten Morgellons, I've been abused. Like I told you, I go to say I'm depressed, put me in group therapy. They commit me to a mental institution because they think I'm a threat to white people. I get them Morgellons. I won't give you any more examples. You'll just have to take my word for it. And I already know that the doctors are not going to have any idea what to do, and they are probably going to treat the symptoms. And if they treat the symptoms, it's going to continue to develop within me, okay? Because the cartilage of my ear had a hard metal thing in it, hard metal circle. I tried to crush it. I could not crush it. Could not be, and it also hurt. And then it created fibers on the outside and inside of my ear that I could actually pluck with tweezers, but couldn't see. So I could hear it go as I'm plucking them, and the tension on the tweezers. But I look and there's nothing there, right? And I'm feeling in my ear, and I can't feel an actual thing, just these hairs, but I can feel the little feet, the little flagella hitting the bottom of my ear canal. But worse than that, I put the tweezers in my ear, and there's no eardrum. There's no eardrum. I could keep going if I wanted to, because I didn't push it past a certain point, but I could have, because it took me maybe 6 weeks to defeat the beast in my ear, in my right ear. I had to, it creates these fiber-like hairs that provide the defense